Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. I know it does not feel this way day in and day out. There is so much anguish right now, and we're going to talk about some of the stories in the news causing that anguish. But I still think it is still worth considering. Right now, we are living in a time of one of the most incredible scientific achievements in recent memory. Right? It's been an unbelievably dark year, one of the worst in American history. We are not out of the woods with coronavirus yet. In fact, there's a terrible surge happening right now in the state of Michigan, hitting near record high hospitalizations and cases. And we're going to talk to the governor about what is going on there in just a moment. But again, first, let's just take a step back. Think about what is happening on the vaccination front. All the focus over the last couple of days has been on the temporary suspension of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. That after 6 women who received the vaccine developed a rare blood clotting disorder. The FDA and the CDC recommended pausing distribution while they assess the situation. Now, it's important to keep in mind this is an extremely tiny number of known cases. Also, in terms of the overall picture of American vaccination, Johnson & Johnson was providing a small amount to the American vaccine supply. The vast majority of our supply right now is coming from the vaccines from Moderna and Pfizer. Those 2 vaccines were developed in less than a year with a technology that has never been used before and are now being deployed at unimaginable scale. We are averaging well over 3 million vaccines a day, more than 3.5 million reported today. And the vaccines, the data that we have on these vaccines is incredible. I mean, the CDC reported today, this isn't clinical data, this is like the data from the world, right? That just 0.008% of the at least 66 million fully vaccinated people in the U.S. have caught COVID, as far as we know. And of that tiny infinitesimal pool, only 7% of those so-called breakthrough cases have been severe enough to require hospitalization. These vaccines are mind-blowingly effective. In Israel, where more than half of the population is now fully vaccinated, new cases have just fallen off a cliff. I mean, look at that chart. That's what you want to see. It really looks like they have broken the back of this thing. Cases are also starting to drop in New York City, where more than a third of residents have received at least 1 dose, and many people likely already have antibodies because this city and area got hit so very hard in the first wave. So these vaccines, they are a gift of science and human struggle and inquiry that have been given to us to finally provide a definitive way out of this thing. But they are being polarized along political lines by devious, insidious, or maybe just inattentive actors on the right. There's Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who wouldn't even take the simple step of just getting vaccinated in public to encourage others to do the same. In fact, when a MAGA figure like Ivanka Trump does get publicly vaccinated, which, by the way, good for her. Thank you for doing that. They are met with vitriol. Responses like, nope, I never will. Hell no. Why would you post this? I have an immune system for a reason. And now we are getting data to back that sentiment up. That's not just Instagram trolls. New polling from Monmouth finds that 43% of Republicans want to avoid the vaccine altogether, compared to just 5% of Democrats. This map, showing the percentage of vaccine supply used in each state, paints a stark picture, too. The lightest shade of green here represents the lowest percentages. That's the most amount of vaccine sitting around going unused. And you can see a big grouping right there. The solid red deep south, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. So here we are, OK, after this unimaginably awful year, this incredible thing that science produced, giving us a way out. We just have to take it. And the other thing is our government is actually doing a good job for the first time in this pandemic. The last obstacle is this nihilistic, psychotic political movement on the American right, telling Americans their freedom is being violated by measures intended to save their lives.
What measure, what standard, what objective outcome do we have to reach before Americans get their liberty and freedoms back?
You know, you're indicating liberty and freedom. I look at it as a public health measure to prevent people from dying and going to the hospital.
You don't think Americans' liberties have been threatened the last year, Dr. Fauci? They've been assaulted.
Okay, you think the freedom's been assaulted. Well, there's a way out of this, right? Let's vaccinate our way out of it. Now, there's one place where this dangerous propaganda has come from more than any other, maybe aside from Donald Trump, throughout the pandemic, right? I mean, I'm just talking all the way from the beginning. and that's Fox News. I mean, when you take a step back, from the beginning, they have tried every single way of undermining the response to coronavirus. Even before the vaccine came along, they spread lies and railed against every possible solution. We had all the public health measures that were at our disposal to try to save lives.
I'm not afraid of the coronavirus, and no one else should be that afraid either.
One thing we've learned is even when there's an infected person amongst thousands and thousands, in our case, over 10,000 people, it is very, very difficult to contract this virus.
I feel like the more I learn about this, the less there is to worry about.
I was about to say the same thing.
It's a virus like the flu.
It's actually the safest time to fly. Everyone I know that's flying right now, terminals are pretty much dead.
By having total population isolation, we are preventing natural immunity from developing.
Now, these endless one-size-fits-all lockdown orders, like the governor of Michigan, they need to end now, right now.
Many are willing to take the risk of contracting the virus. We've seen that in the polling, frankly, what they rate as more worrisome to them. And they would risk this in order to preserve their way of life.
Mr. Vice President, I'm holding up a letter, and I'm going to read from it in a second, from a doctor in the New York area. And he has a regimen, hydroxychloroquine. I would use it for me, and I'm only speaking for me.
Okay, so we had the lockdowns. It's just like the flu. It's actually not that bad. It's hard to get. The lockdowns don't work. The lockdowns are tyrannical. Hydroxychloroquine, the malaria drug, remember that? You should take that. Now, here's the thing. A lot of the animus on that network directed at the public health measures, like, shelter-in-place orders, closing down businesses, social distancing, those did have a lot of really brutal costs. I mean, right? We all experienced them, sitting in our homes, not sending our kids to school. I mean, some level of frustration with that made sense. But here's the thing. We've now got a way out of that, okay? We can vaccinate our way out of the pandemic and not have to deal with those things. But now that we're at that point, Fox News, especially Tucker Carlson, is now trying to undermine the vaccines.
How effective is this coronavirus vaccine? How necessary is it to take the vaccine? Don't dismiss those questions from anti-vaxxers. It is possible, in fact, that this vaccine is more dangerous than they're indicating it is. Why are Joe Biden and Kamala Harris still wearing their silly little obedience masks everywhere they go? They've been vaccinated, so is everyone around them. So why the masks? Why the restrictions? What exactly is going on here? We know it's not science. We know that for certain. If vaccines work, why are vaccinated people still banned from living normal lives? So maybe it doesn't work and they're simply not telling you that.
Yeah, why all this thing? Why? I'm just asking questions. Why am I always asking questions? I don't know. I'm just asking questions, okay? While all of that has been flowing over the airwaves into millions of American homes, the head of Fox News' parent company, Lachlan Murdoch, he moved his family to Australia. Now, let's be clear here. That makes a certain amount of sense, of course. His father grew up there, started his career there. And Lord knows, I don't begrudge anyone moving their family anywhere. But, it is notable because Australia is a place that basically does not have the coronavirus, which would be a nice thing to experience. But, the reason they don't have that is their government undertook stringent public health measures at the beginning of the pandemic to lock people in place, to stop them from moving around, to contact trace and snuff out the virus. And when it reappeared, you know what they did? They locked down again. And when people violated the movement restrictions, which were stricter than anything any state in America ever did, it was front page news and a national scandal. Teenagers crossing the Queensland border. And through those policies that Fox News would describe as absolute tyranny and whip up anger against if they happened here, well, Australia basically got rid of the virus. So Lachlan Murdoch can live in Australia, along with the rest of that country, as if COVID basically doesn't exist. And they can enjoy their music festivals, and they can go out to eat and have weddings and all that stuff. Lucky him. The only reason that was possible is because of a government that was able to undertake the kinds of policies that Murdoch's own network has been subverting and sabotaging from day one. The outcome in the United States is in no small part on their hands. It continues to be to this day because we're not out of the woods yet.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.